So when I first meet a family, we just sort of come in and it's a lot of almost sitting back and observing. I usually let the social worker talk first so I can take in everything that's going on, especially if the child is present, and I try to go over and interact with them in whatever way they are able to interact, even if it's just physical contact. But part of the way that we can hear, or I can hear a lot where they're at, is listening to their story. I have to get a past medical history, and I ask them, start with your pregnancy and tell me everything that you're willing to tell me. And most parents roll their eyes or take a big deep breath, and I said, as much as you can. I just want to get to know your child as best that I can and what you guys have been through. And sometimes the kid is 3 months old, so it's not a very long story, and sometimes they're 16, and so the story takes almost an hour. And by the way that they tell it, you can get a lot of information in terms of where they're at and the big events that have stuck with them, or when they've seen a shift in their child. Sometimes I'll ask for the story and they tell me everything. They tell me exactly when the ear tubes were placed, when the G tube was placed, in every single event. And then this is what happened, and then we were hospitalized for this long. And then sometimes well, they were born and we got the diagnosis and now they go to school. And so the family's obviously not as worried about them medically as some other families might be at that point. Whereas the families that are telling me every single detail, and this was big, and then this was big, and then they stopped doing this at this point, sort of can explain, I don't know if I'm explaining it well, but sort of explains where the family is at. And then that helps prompt me to ask further questions. And I do try to ask if the families, they seem comfortable with me, sort of a code status, goals of care question. And basically I phrase it as, we're in your home, and if something happened to your child while we were here, what do you want us to do? Are we calling 911? Are we helping you with X, Y, and Z? And a lot of times parents are like, oh, I haven't thought about that. And that's a good way to kind of get a foot in the door with having that goals of care conversation, if it's appropriate. And something, well, I'm going to come back in 2 weeks so we can kind of continue that conversation. And then more stuff will come up in 2 weeks, and then it's a good way for me to make an entrance.